Hello, everyone. Today we are going to talk about and discuss a potential solution for the DJI O4, the O4 Lite, as we're commonly called it, the one that we've been seeing in a lot of micros. Specifically, I'm not talking about the O4 Pro. I think this is specific to the O4/O4 Lite. And many of you may have seen my Meteor 75 Pro HD video where I had a clip where it shows us flying around inside, and I'm just kind of slow cruising, flying, of course. But with the RockSteady on, the video is jumping all over the place. It's really not stable. And I've seen very similar things posted on Facebook and whatnot, and I've gotten messages, comments, emails, all the various things. And a lot of it was focused on the PID tune and then some other discussion about the soft mounting. And in my mind, I really couldn't wrap my head around this being a PID tune problem, because when we look at the DVR from our goggle view and when we're flying it, it looks normal. Nice, stable, crisp footage. When we look at the onboard storage with RockSteady off, again, nice, stable footage. We turn RockSteady on, we turn this software on, and all of a sudden the video is jittering around. So at first, my thoughts were this is probably a software issue. It could be a hardware issue, but I didn't have any idea what the actual problem was. And I was, like I said, sent a lot of different messages. Some of them were focused on PID tune. I had a couple saying that this was a bug. I couldn't find any acknowledgement from DJI stating that it was a bug. So I couldn't really give anything any validation. And because I'm kind of limited in what I can do now, I have a hard time turning screwdrivers and doing any soldering because I'm right-handed. I thought, well, I need to start investigating a little bit further. And one of the things that I thought were easy to check was to look at the ESC. So there has been suggestions to try 48 kilohertz and 96 kilohertz. Well, the Meteor 75 Pro, it came on 96 kilohertz. And instantly I thought, well, that kind of rules that out. But it was 48 kilohertz or 96 kilohertz. So I thought, well, let's try it. You know, I'm not doing much else right now. I've got some videos I can work on, of course, but I was just kind of sitting there in the moment thinking about this. So I flashed it to 48 kilohertz, and this was nighttime, so I went upstairs and I gave it a shot, and it flew around. And as you can see, I like to do a little bit of a proof of concept. I don't like to do theoretical videos or videos that could be potentially faked. You know, this day and age, a lot of things can get faked. So I start with the DVR footage, showing you how the camera is set up with RockSteady on, and then I take off. And we see a little bit of a flutter when you take off, but that's just that first moment when you're in lots of dirty air from the air coming back up off the table and surfaces that we're on, and I'm not taking off super aggressively, so I don't get out of that air very quickly. But then on 48 kilohertz, on what was previously 98 kilohertz on the ESC, with RockSteady on, we've got nice smooth flight footage. Cruising around, everything is just as we would expect it to be, with the RockSteady working normally and our camera dampening. If it's doing anything, it seems to be working, whatever the case may be. DVR footage is good, RockSteady is good. Problem solved, right? Well, initially I thought, well, this is nighttime, and we have seen cameras in various situations where when you change the light, that you could potentially see that vibration or jello in the video. So I thought, well, I better hold the phone before I start calling out that this is a solution or a potential solution, and get this during the day. And I like to do this inside because that eliminates the outside variables, namely wind. So we got during the day, and it's not full bright sunlight outside, but you can see that as I fly around the house. Again, we start with the DVR footage showing that the RockSteady is turned on, and then we transition into the onboard with RockSteady on video footage. And you can see how bright the light is coming in through the windows, and that was something else I wanted to test. Different lighting situation. Maybe I just wasn't seeing it in my nighttime flight, but I needed to give it more time and a little bit more effort and give it a daytime flight. So I went for a few daytime flights, and this is one of them. And we can see again on 48 kilohertz versus my previous video on the Meteor 75 Pro that 48 kilohertz seems to solve it for this particular quad. So that's a potential solution. If you've got a quad and it's on 96 kilohertz, try it on 48 kilohertz. If it's on 24 kilohertz, maybe try it on 48 kilohertz and then 96 kilohertz. This I'm not going to claim is a broad solution. This is one example that I could show you the video proof that it did solve it for the Meteor 75 Pro HD. And so if you've got a Meteor 75 Pro HD, I would highly suggest changing the ESC setting if you want to use RockSteady to 48 kilohertz. Now, how do we do that? Before we get to how do we change that, some of you already know, but you got to have a little fan. Micro VTXs, specifically the HD ones, do get hot, and you are going to have to power them up with a battery in order to be able to write the new firmware with 96 or 48 kilohertz to the ESC. So a little fan, make sure your fan is charged if it's USB like mine, and also make sure you have a fully charged battery. Check the battery, make sure it's fully charged. And the last thing, for safety, take off your props. In this case, I'm not going to take off my props because I am not going to actually be flashing it. I'm just going to show you the steps up to the point where you click Flash All. So how I do this, of course, as you can see here, I've gone to escconfigurator.com. Sometimes you'll get a message in this window that you need to refresh the app because it caches locally. I have got my USB connection plugged in. I'm going to turn on my fan, so you may hear some feedback from my little fan to keep that HD cool. And I'm going to click connect, but before I click read settings, I'm going to plug in a battery, and we're going to hear the tones potentially on the microphone if it picks that up. And we've got the tones from no RC link. That's fine. We don't want to have our radio on, but I'm going to go ahead and click read settings. And now we can see our configuration. Please note the ESCs. I would suggest just taking a screenshot of this altogether and saving that somewhere. I probably should have also warned you, go ahead and take a picture of your props. Maybe 2 different angles of pictures so you can put the props back on in their proper orientation. Sometimes I get messages from people that have props on either upside down or they're oriented wrong, where you have props in versus props out. The Meteor 75 Pro HD, as it comes stock as a bind and fly, is props in configuration. But do note this, and you can see I've got it on 48 kilohertz already. But we want to have this information available, so we go down to Flash All ESCs. Typically, this picks up your ESC in this bar here. It picks that up fairly well, but you do want to verify that it is what you saw on the previous screen. And then you're going to select your version. I usually go one version back from new, but you know, to each their own. So we select that version. And then this is where we select our frequency. So previously it was on 96 kilohertz and I changed it to 48 kilohertz. So change that based upon your previous findings. And then you click flash, and it does take a little bit of time, and it goes through each individual ESC. And you'll see that on the, if we go back, there'll be a bar right here that'll have kind of a runtime bar, and then it'll go to each next ESC as it kind of goes through flashing each particular one. Do note that if you go in here and you don't see anything listed here, that I do believe that's on 24 kilohertz. It doesn't seem to list that, or at the factory, it doesn't have that particular code in there to show it to us when we're on ESC configurator. So if you don't see 48 kilohertz or 96 kilohertz, and it's just nothing right here where the kilohertz would appear, it's probably on 24 kilohertz. So you can make your changes appropriately from that point. And that's really it. And hopefully this is a wide-ranging fix that takes care of it for a lot people in a lot of different scenarios, but I can't say definitively. I've got one working example of this, of the 4 different O4 lights that I have. One of the 2 that has this issue only has it outside. You might be asking, well, what about outside testing? Well, you know, I only have micros, and my winds have been and will continue to be for the next at least 4 or 5 days in the teens with gusts into the low 20s. So even if I go out and show you what the RockSteady does with this, it's not good because it's blowing the quad and the quad's struggling to fly. Matter of fact, I did take this outside, and at one point, because of the direction of the wind, I had to really nose down in order to just get back home because the wind had gusted up, and it was shaking during that period of time. But I think inside and ruling out that wind variable, it takes one element or variable out of the equation in the troubleshooting practice or process. And so I thought inside, for me, it validated because it had it inside previously, changed the ESC from 96 kilohertz to 48 kilohertz, and the problem went away. So as far as any other fix, there might be others. I'm not claiming that this is the only fix, but I have this working example on this particular quad that I can share with you, and hopefully this will make it to those that have been struggling with their O4 lights and having that jittery footage with RockSteady on. Of course, if you don't want to make these changes, you can just turn RockSteady off. That's an option too, but that's not really fixing that feature, so to speak. Now, I don't understand why that worked. I can hypothesize, but I don't think my hypothesis, at least what I'm thinking, is very good. I was thinking that the changing of the kilohertz on the ESC was maybe changing the noise profile from the main board to the component that is handling RockSteady on the O4 light. Maybe. Again, I don't know. Maybe it changes the smoothness of the motors. Maybe it changes the power distribution between both of them. I don't know. I'm just, again, that's a hypothesis. But if you've got one that has this particular problem, try changing the kilohertz on the ESC and see if it resolves it for you. If it does, I would sure appreciate it if you would come back and let me know in the comments down below. So, hopefully this is a wide-ranging fix and we can put this little issue to bed, and everybody who flies DJI can go ahead and just continue to enjoy it now that we know how this is. Of course, with future boards and silent revisions, who knows if it'll be necessary in the future. But for now, that's what I have to share with you. Hopefully it's very successful. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.